определенно закрывается, можно говорить. Потом
Есть. Слышно? Okay. Welcome everyone. My name is Marina Rastorgueva, and my presentation is about React. Let's start right away with a very important question. What is React? Why do we need it, and what's awesome about it? Well, according to React official documentation, following is the definition. React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It encourages the creation of reusable components and which present data that changes over time. Lots of people use React as V in MVC model. And React implements one-way reactive data flow which reduces boilerplate and is easier to reason about than traditional data binding. React has some unique core concepts. They are components, virtual DOM, JS6 props. And also every React component has a state and a life cycle, which we will go into later. At the heart of all React applications are the components. A component is essentially a piece of user interface. When we build applications with React, we build a bunch of independent, isolated, and reusable components. And then we combine them to build complex interfaces. Well, every React application has at least one component, which is referred to as a root component. This component represents the internal application and contains other child components. So every React application is a tree of components. For example, if we want to build an application like Twitter, we can split our requirements into components like navbar, profile section, feed, trends, and many more. If we visualize it as a tree, at the top we have an app, and below we have navbar, profile, trends, and feed. The feed component may include other tweet components, and each tweet component may contain other lightweight components, which we can reuse in other applications or in other pages. So as you see, each React component is a piece of user interface. A component is usually implemented as a JavaScript class with a state and a render method. Here we see in the first example a function welcome props. We can write it in the ES6 way, like a class welcome which extends React component. In the first example, we return a simple HTML element. In the ES6 example, we return particularly the same thing, but a little bit syntax thrown in for passing back an HTML element. In the first, the state here is the data we want to display when the component is rendered. The render method here is responsible for describing how our user interface should look like. And the output of the render method is a React element, which is a simple plain JavaScript object that maps to a DOM element. A point to consider over here, it's not a real DOM element. It's just a plain JavaScript object that presents the DOM element in memory. So React keeps a lightweight representation of the DOM in memory, which we are referring to as a virtual DOM. Reconciliation is the process through which React updates the DOM. When a component state changes, React has to calculate if it is necessary to update the DOM. React does this by creating virtual DOM and comparing it virtual DOM with the current DOM. That means that we no longer have to to query or manipulate the DOM or attach event handlers. We just change the state of our component, and then React updates the DOM. And that is why React is this library is called React, because when the state changes, React essentially reacts to the state change and updates the DOM. Well, JSX. JSX is officially an XML-like syntax, which is familiar to HTML, but it's not quite HTML. It is actually JavaScript with HTML sprinkled in. These examples illustrate JSX. JSX is basically a syntax extension of regular JavaScript and is used to create React elements. These elements are then rendered to the React DOM. Well, props. Props is what gives our components and attributes overall properties. This is how we pass in data, and this is how we deal with various attributes. Well, as we see here in this example, we have the shopping list name. We pass in a name, and we're able to use this props name while rendering this component. This is an easy way to pass data in and out. Every React application has a state object. A state object is where we store property values. When the state object changes, the component renders. In the example below, in the beginning, when we create a component clock, in the constructor we have this state. We pass in a new date and we pass in a new day, and then we can actually output that in the random method. We can use states easily to perform common tasks like setting the state and extracting the state easily. A component has a life cycle which we can manipulate and monitor during its three main phases. These three main phases are mounting, updating, and unmounting. Well, this diagram is from React official documentation and showcasing the different React lifecycle methods and when they are invoked. Well, some lifecycle methods have been deprecated and some new ones have been introduced. Lifecycle methods are to be used in special cases when other fallbacks like rearranging your components or moving your state around won't work. Hooks. Hooks are a new addition in React 16.8. Hooks are functions that let you hook into React state and lifecycle features from function component. They let you use React without classes. React provides a few basic and additional hooks. And I would like to show an example with a useState hook. If you write a function component and realize you need to add some state to it, previously you had to convert it to a class. Now you can use a hook inside the existing function component. In a class, we initialize the count state to 0 in the first example. In the second example, we have a function component, and we have no this here. Instead, we call the useState hook, and we declare a state variable called count and set it to 0. And React will remember its current value between renders and provide the most recent one to our function. React nowadays is a premier way to build big, fast web apps with JavaScript. It has scaled very well as such huge apps like Facebook and Instagram. And remember that code is read far more than it's written. And it's less difficult to read this modular and explicit code like in React. Well, it was my short overview of React, and thank you for listening. To tell the truth, I haven't tried yet, but I know that in the third stage we will have React, and I hope that it will be number one in my to-do list.
Okay. And will you enroll the React courses at the stage 3?
Could you please repeat?
If I'm not mistaken, there are several framework courses at the stage 3.
Oh.
Are you going to enroll React courses?
I heard that the third stage will be React, and if I can't get to the EPAM.js lab, I will enroll this course React.
So, and the question I promised you to ask,
Mhm.
what's your background
Well,
here?
mm,
What's your background?
well, to tell the truth, I don't have technical background. Um, um, I finished Belarus State Economic University, the Department of Management and Economic Informatics. And then I worked at the National Academy of Sciences, and now I'm working as internet marketer at online web shop.
Well, you decided to become a developer.
Yes. Why?
But with this background, IT sphere could give you an opportunities in such cases as BA, business
Mhm.
analysis. Didn't you try this way?
I know about business analysis, but I tried front end and I liked it very much, and I understood
What you tried?
front end and writing code with JavaScript. And when I understood it, I liked it very much, and I want to try myself in this sphere. It's more interesting for me nowadays. Thank you.
Who's next?
Hi, my name is Tanya, and I want to talk about SQL. And first of all, I would like to start with basic concepts. And first question, what is database? Database is a collection of related information that can be stored in different ways. Database management systems is a special software program that helps users create and maintain database. We can interact a database to create, read, update, and delete information. There are two types of database, relation and non-relation. And in more detail, I want to talk about relation database using SQL. And the second question, what is SQL? Не переключается.
Сюда.
Туда? Я что-то не так жму? Попробуйте, пожалуйста.
Is it works? Is it what you wanted? Yeah? I'm not sure, but it works. If you push this button.
Да. Yes.
Okay. You're welcome.
What is SQL? SQL is a structured query language used for interacting with relation database management systems that helps users create and maintain relation database. SQL is a hybrid language and has four types of languages in one. The first type, data query language. Data query language used to query the database for information. The second type, data definition language. Data definition language used for defining database schemas. The next type, data control language. This type used for controlling access to data in the database. And the last type, data manipulation language. This type used for inserting, updating, and deleting data from the database. In short, we can create, read, update, and delete data from database. We can create and manage databases. We can design and create database tables and perform administrative tasks. And next question, what is query? A query is a set of instructions that tell the relation database management systems what information a developer wants to retrieve for the other developer. And now we consider example. We create a table called student with 3 parameters: student ID, name, and measure. Student ID set primary key. Primary key is a parameter that set to uniquely identify a particular record. Name and measure are parameters that have varchar. Varchar is a variable length data type. And at the bottom, we can see result. In short, we can the following operations. We can perform the following operations with database. We can delete a table using command drop table student. We can add a column to table using command alter table student and GPA decimal 32, and we can delete a column and delete a row. If we want to add data in our table, we can use command insert into. Insert into student, and in brackets we write parameters. For example, one is student ID, deck name, and biology measure. And using command select all values from student, we get our table. But what if you don't know a student's measure? For example, create first row with the student ID and name, but without measure. And we can see in column measure with student ID 4 null. We can solve this problem if we set default parameter undecided. Also, we can delete multiple rows for our table. In this example, we delete rows on 4 to 8. Also, we can change values. This example demonstrated that we change value biology on bio. Next, 2 examples show that we can value measure indicating any values. For example, first example shows that we set measure graphic design where student ID 9, and the second example we set measure miss where measures sociology and graphic design. Now to talk about basic queries, and this example demonstrated what we choose only name. Next example demonstrate that we sort in name in alphabetical order using command order by. If we add desk after order by, we get sorting certain name column in descending order. This example demonstrated that our measures sort in alphabetical order, but we have two identical order with measure miss, and student ID desk shows that our two rows with the student ID 9 and 2 sort in descending order. This example demonstrated that we can get second two parameters using operator limit. We can set any values of 3, 5, 10. And this example show us that we also can get rows with rows if we set after where measure miss or name Julia. And the last example demonstrated operator where in, where in brackets we have несколько имен. Several names, thank you. Thanks for your attention.
Why did you choose this topic? It's of course related to web development, but not particularly to the front end.
Because in future I want I want to be not front end. I want to be full stack, and SQL very good SAM.
What kind of databases do you know? What else?
I don't know database, SQL don't know.
Okay, and what are you doing right now? Is your profession connected with?
Now I work front end. My second year, yeah. But I think that good specialist must know more than only front end.
As far as I remember, they wanted you to be interviewed for a short track, no?
No.
No, you didn't.
I couldn't.
You couldn't what?
Ну, на шорт-треке не смогла бы. Да.
Okay, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Anastasia, and today we are going to talk about React. Yeah, I'm not original, so yeah. Okay, everything is working. As we're kind of beginners in React, so am I. I'm not going to rock your brain about the technical expressions and technical some kind of jargon, so yeah, let's get started. First of all, let's mesh some companies that actively use React. It's such scope of companies, for example, Codecademy, Facebook, Instagram, GitHub, and there are lots. So yeah, so on. So it's like an Angular or Ember. No, it's not. Lots of people use React like we in MVC. And to be honest, React is mainly the view layer. It's a JavaScript library, it's not the framework. And React gives you a template language and some callback functions to essentially render it to HTML. And the one output of the React is their HTML. So your bundle of JavaScript HTML called components can have, they have their own internal state. And, but in the end, you really just borrowed out your HTML. So just a little history about React. Wikipedia suggests that React was created by Jordan Work. It's like a Facebook software developer. And the first time we have faced with React at Facebook newsfeed in 2011, and later, the year later, on Instagram in 2012. And React source code was opened in May, the year after, in 2013, at the JS conference. So what is so great about React? I think we should figure it out. So first of all, React is always ready. So React got its name because he reacts of the changes of the state, although not reactively, but on the schedule. And actually, it was a joke that React have been named schedule. So, however, what we see when updating the state of any components is that React reacts to this update and automatically render the update into the DOM API. So, okay, the input of the render function is the props, which are passed by the parent, and their internal state, which can be updated at any time. So when the input to the render function change, the result, it's sensible that the result can also be changed. And React records the very interesting point is that React records the rendering history, and when he see that some render has changed, he calculates that and render into their DOM API. So I hope your interest is really on fire. We have to get started immediately. First of all, let's imagine that we are not housewife level and everyone has installed Node.js. And after all of that, we have to write down this one. In PX, create React app, my app. Why in PX? Why not NPM? Because in PX is a package runner tool that comes with NPM 5.2 and higher. After that, we are going to the folder, my app. And we have to notice that there are no complication folder structure, only the files you really need to build your app. After that, we just write down some building comments, for example, npm start. So yeah, and after all of that, we have to open localhost 3000 to view it on the browser. And actually, if you write down something on your code, if you want to change something on your code, it's automatically reload everything. And if you have any errors, lint errors, or something like that, you will see it on the console log. So we have created our first app, and to be really professional, real professional, we have to know at least 3 concepts of the React. First of all, it's JSX, components, and props. Let's start from the JSX. Okay, what the hell is JSX? Okay, JSX is an optional preprocessor to use HTML-like syntax. And it's a syntax extension that lets you write code that looks like this. It's a basic HTML extension, and to translate it into the code that looks like that. It's a kind of interesting, I think so. So really, it's all a dot. There are no runtime that support this. You just take JavaScript expression that looks like JavaScript HTML extension and turn it into the code, turn it to the function calls, and you can put any valid JavaScript expression inside the curly braces of G6, for example, 2 plus 2, or I don't know, user first name, user last name. It's all valid JavaScript expressions. So, okay, talking about components. What is a component? Component is an independent reusable code block which divides the UI into smaller pieces. But in other words, let's think of component like Lego blocks. So you create a Lego structure from little Lego blocks, and this is the same like you create UI from little code blocks. So it's a component. So on the example below, we can see hello world component. And it's really just a function. After that, React DOM render create the component, starts the framework, and ingest HTML into DOM node. Also, we can use components with the ECMAScript 6, with the classes, actually, class that extends React component. So yeah, hello world is component that extends React component. And the render method is required. So you can think of this as your template. Okay, talking about the props, let's moving on. Constantly, components are like JavaScript function, and every function has its arguments. So in this case, components, props, are arguments of components. So we can watch it on the example below. And there are more examples using the props parameters. So you can access this data to the props parameters inside of a JavaScript expression in the curly braces. And you can pass read-only properties to React component via its attribute. And to be honest, you really can use props in ECMAScript 6 with the classes. Here's the example. So when you are using React class, you can accept props of the implement parameters. And very interesting point is that you can feel free to use destructuring. So yeah, that's all. I hope I was useful and you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me.
Okay, about components. What kind of components do you know in React?
What kind of components?
Function?
Yes, as I told earlier, components like a function. It's sensible that it could be function components, but I haven't faced with another kind of component, so maybe I can, I'm not sure about my, yeah.
Function components and class components?
Class components, yeah, we have shown it, yeah.
And what's the difference? Why do they need two kind of components for one thing to build a component?
Because their class component extends React component, and it have the function render. So the question is what the difference between them?
Yeah.
Because the class component extends the React component, as I understood your question, right?
And you told us that React is a JavaScript library.
Yes.
Why it isn't a framework? Well, you know, there are libraries and frameworks.
Of course,
Yeah,
and the platforms.
and what?
And the platforms.
And platforms.
Yeah, yeah. Because, sorry, I was surprised that Angular now currently is a platform. I have served the internet, and the first link told me that it's not a framework anymore. But, okay, it's not about this.
I don't think so, because Angular is still a framework, but you choose the right platform for building your application, and by default it comes with a browser platform. So, for example, you can write your application for a refrigerator. All you need is just to implement the abstractions of the platform.
Okay, okay. because yeah, I really was surprised when I saw this link on the Google. Okay, but what was the question? Sorry.
Question is, why do you call React library and why it isn't a
A
framework?
framework? From my point of view, I think that React is not such fulfill as Angular or not a framework. That's why it's a library, because mostly frameworks much more bigger than library of the documentation and so on. So it's just only my point of view. I'm not sure about the size matters.
Okay, what kind of libraries do you know?
Mm,
Something else?
yeah, currently, like we have told, Angular library. Sorry, jQuery, one of their famous one. Okay, jQuery, React, and something else, but actually I don't remember.
Lodash?
Yes, of course, Lodash.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Меня слышно? So hello, my name is Alena, and now I would like to show you my presentation describing TypeScript. So what is it, TypeScript? TypeScript is a JavaScript that scales. It's a simple, it's a superset of JavaScript that complies to simple, clean JavaScript code, which can be run on any browser, any operating system, and it's open source. So how to get started with TypeScript? There are two main ways. First is via NPM, and second is by installing TypeScript Visual Studio plugins. So how does it work? At first, we add our code to the file with extension TypeScript, and then, thankfully to TypeScript compiler, we compile our code to in JavaScript file, and then we get simple JavaScript. So what are the main advantages of using TypeScript? First is the code easier to understand, so we know which value it should return and which value it accepts. Code easier and faster to implement and refactor, and less bugs are made during implementation of the application. So as you know, there are many different types of data, for example, Boolean, number, string, and so on. And I would like to start from the Boolean. As you can see on the slide, we declare a variable a and add its type, Boolean, and then we assign value true. The next is b variable with the type Boolean and value false. So when we compile our TypeScript file, we will get a simple JavaScript where true is assigned to a variable and false is assigned to b, and no types are displayed in JavaScript file. But if you try to assign something but Boolean values, true, false, for example, if you're gonna assign string or number, you'll get an error because only true, false types values are possible here. So next type is number. As you see, syntax is the same. We have a variable, its type, and assign any value that is valid according to its type. If we assign something like string or array, it won't work. So next type is string. We can add string type and assign any value, for example, Kuprevича, and we can reassign it later, for example, for независимости, but it also will work because both values are strings. Next type is array. In TypeScript, we can add arrays. We just have to define type of elements that you want to see in the array, and then add square brackets. So the same way to add string array is add string and square brackets, and then you'll get array of strings. So next type I would like to discuss is tuple. Tuple is a type which helps you to express an array with a fixed number of elements with certain types, but these elements can change. For example, the first example is where first value in the array is Kuprevich and second is 3, so it's valid. But the last example is 3 and Kuprevich. It will cause an error because you switched types of array elements. So next type is any. Okay, while writing our code, we may not know which type of variable will be, because it may come from third-party libraries or from user, and in that case we should use type any, and then we can assign any type to this variable, as you can see on the slide. Next I would like to tell you about interfaces. An interface defines the syntax that any entity should follow too. It defines properties, events that are mentioned in interface. On the slide you can see the interface favorite weather with the first read-only property country and its string, so it's only read-only property. And the last that I would like to mention here is weather with question mark. That means that this property is not mandatory, so you can create interfaces with or without this property. So next type that I would like to tell you, it's aliases. How does it work? So it helps to create a new type, but maybe not actually a type, a new name, which refers to the certain type that you want to use. For example, we create type city that refers to string, and type city finder that a function with a return type string again, and then we create type city or city finder where or is used, and for function find city, return type is city, and a city will be returned. I mean string will be returned as it called city here. So that's how we use aliases. So next is functions. For functions you can add a return type, its number on the example, and also you can add type to any argument that function accepts. Next is classes. Classes are the same as in JavaScript with a constructor and methods, and you can add type to any value that it use. So next several types. For example, void. Void is like an opposite for any. It means that the absence of any type at all. For example, we can use it as a type of a return function where no value will be returned. Next is undefined and null, and they have their own types, null and undefined accordingly, but they're not very useful for their own. And next is never. So never type is a type which can be used for values that never occur. For example, it can be a return type of function which always throw an exception. And the next type is object. Object type helps represents non-primitive types, for example, not strings, not numbers, and thankfully to object type, object create can be better represented. For example, here we can only create any object or null, and or can be assigned with number or string. That's all from my side. Thank you for attention. I think that I have not much experience to decide this. It should be decided the person who, yeah.
And what's your experience with TypeScript?
I have no experience. My experience is creating a presentation, and as I discussed with my mentor, I wanted to create something with text box or grid, but we decided that TypeScript will be more useful. That's why I chose this topic.
So you mentioned that the application in TypeScript is faster to implement, and do you really think so? Because we have to define all the types of our variables or classes. Do you really think that's
I really think so. But my point of view is combined from literature that I read, and I have no experience in that topic. So no practical experience. So of course there are some disadvantages. For example, if we use TypeScript, we should have a certain file where we gonna define all our libraries or something like that, and sometimes maybe it take a little time to compile code to compile. So we have compile. Compile.
applies the rules or code of conduct?
Okay. It's similar for me.
Yeah, there are several drawbacks of using TypeScript. For instance, your code become more verbose, and as you mentioned, we need a special file that is called tsconfig. Without this file, you won't be able to compile your TypeScript. And this is kind of ridiculous because this is a programming language, and actually you shouldn't configure your language. So that's kind of weird. But at the same time, it will benefit you a lot. For instance, your code will become a real documentation of your interfaces and your data types. For instance, you can describe the structure of API responses, and that's really good.
It's there
That's
is
not a question. That's
a lot of questions for me.
Okay, what,
that's just my comments.
Okay.
what's your background? How did you manage to get here?
Well, I'm software testing engineer, and I decided that I want to do something more, more visible, maybe more something more, and that's why I decided to try myself in development, and that's why I'm here.
And how do you feel about it?
I feel pretty good. It's interesting, and it's sometimes it's difficult. And when you can find out some difficult question, it's really great.
What was the last, or maybe something memorable, difficult thing you faced?
The last.
Maybe you just remember something.
The last difficult was fancy weather task. So.
The whole
Yes, the whole thing, because there was a lot things to do, and the whole time spent on this task. It's very.
Did you manage
What again?
Did you
Uh,
pass this?
task? Not yet. Deadline is prolongated, yeah, for tomorrow, so I have time.
I guess you haven't tried to implement a fiscal from hardest task. And do you think your software testing experience will benefit you in learning the software engineering?
Mm, I think I have some background, maybe
With
in
communicating with
process.
developers, yeah, with development processes and so on.
Yeah, I know some processes, but I don't know the whole thing about development, and I think it will help. Because now I see that some things that I find out on the course I can use during my job. For example, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What? Resume presentation. Ну, надо вернуться в презентацию.
How to do
What?
slides? Moving on?
Just forward.
Do you hear me? Yes. Oh my god. Okay.
Hello, my name is Igor.
Hello, my name is Ksenia. You're also beautiful. So I will talk about React. A code that we are writing in JavaScript, we can divide on the three separate parts. First part is responsible for our view. For what we see in our page, it is our view. The second part is responsible for our business logic. It is our model. And third part is synchronizing these two parts between each other. This is our controller. So React is a library that helps us as developers to create view of our application. We can build around this idea our model and our controller, but this is library that helps us to develop view of our application. What the benefit of using React? First of all, React allows us to describe small little pieces of our application that calls controls. It could be button, it could be form, or something else. The main advantage is that in React we have possibility to tell how these controls are related to our data. And automatically, by changing our data, it will redraw our view. The second advantage is that it does it very effectively. Real operations in real DOM is very expensive. Otherwise, in React, we have a possibility to tell what we want to redraw. And for us, it will look like completely redraw, but first, before redraw HTML, before redraw real DOM, it will optimize all our operations. What React does, it applies new syntax in our application. We can use some code that looks, we can use some text that looks very similar to HTML text, which calls JS6 syntax. To run this code, we should make from our JS6 code regular JavaScript code. Then we should make from all our files complete JavaScript file and apply it in our HTML page, and only after that we can run our JS6 code in our browser. To do so, it happens so that JavaScript frontend is processing by JavaScript programs as Node.js. Node.js, it is engine, the same as in Chrome, which calls V8, and it allows us to create our applications without internet and browser. And also we will need to use JS6 syntax, we should need some tools around. At least we should have Babel. Babel can what Babel can do is that it can make from our latest version of JavaScript some oldest version of JavaScript. For example, we want to use some used features, or even features that doesn't even exist in any browser yet, and because of Babel we can use it. And the number two, what Babel can do is that it can make from our JS6 code regular JavaScript code. To start our project, we should download some certain npm package which calls create React app. It is an app which will create some project for by some pattern. In this project we can find index.html, in which we can find div with ID root. This is div in which React will apply all tags, all elements that we will create by using React. All our application is a bunch of functions that will change content of this div. Also, in each file where we use JS6 syntax, we should require React library. And in one place where we will use React DOM render function, we should require a React DOM library. As we know that JS6 syntax doesn't exist in JavaScript, each of these tags replacing by calling a function React create element. This is why we should have React library in each file where we use React JS6 syntax. React allows us to work with some blocks that we can reuse for multiple times or just hide huge logic on them. For example, I want to create a list, and I want it to be the same anywhere I use it. For this opportunity, React has components. For calling such components, React has special syntax. We can call them the same as a tags. The classic way to describe tags in HTML is to apply an attributes. We can use the same syntax to apply arguments to our function. All attributes that we will apply inside our tag will be accessible as a first argument of our function as an object, and it will have the same keys and the same values as we assigned attributes. Also, to call our function as a tag, we have some rules. We have some rules for naming our function. First of all, it should start with the uppercase letter, because if it will be a lowercase, React not gonna find any function with this name. It will try to create tag with this name. And also, usually we call them the same as element that they describe, because usually they describe some parts of user interfaces. In regular functions, we still don't have enough of a possibility of changing something that will automatically redraw our view. For this opportunity, React has special component called class. To define our class, we should extend it from React component. React component that we extended our function from has special function render. This is that we will redefine in our class. On calling our function, React will apply a result that returns our render functions. So we should return some tags from this render function. We can call other components inside our component with our properties and with our data. And by changing our data, it will automatically redraw such components that have been assigned with these properties or with this data. what the benefit of using React components to compare them with HTML is that we can hide we can hide all, in one React component can be hidden a lot of application logic about viewing behavior, and we can hide all this functionality by calling one function. This is it. Let's start questions.
Okay, I'll ask you. I've read that you have some educational background in web development. Could you please describe it?
Absolutely not. I don't have any experience. This is education. This is not. This is an experience.
Educational experience, let's call it like that.
Yes, I have been learning JavaScript for 1.5 years, and I
1.5 year?
year or years, 1.5. Yes, and I also took some courses, which was basics of HTML and CSS, and also basics of JavaScript and React, and this is it about my freedom. And also I learned it by myself all other time.
I see. Did you write any kind of app on these courses? Maybe page, PA?
What we did is that we created some a list with what we need to do is that list with some items that you can change with states, and it should be, I don't know, I didn't do this homework.
Did you do this homework?
No, I didn't.
They gave you a certificate.
It was after our course, it was last our homework, and in this time I haven't have enough of my knowledge to complete it. I tried.
And you mentioned function component and class component. Could you please emphasize the difference?
I think the main difference between these functions, this is a regular function, and class has constructor and it has its properties. And it's we have state inside, we have component did mount functions, many of methods, and because of that we can React will redraw such components because we have states inside.
We have state inside what?
Inside of component, class component. Yes, class component. Only in class component. Thank you too. Thank you very much.